Oh, very good morning, and this time in Street MBA, I have somebody for you whom I admired for many years, from whom I received an award. But more than that, I think let me talk about things which will really surprise you and excite you. Let me take you back 40 years back. At that time, getting into IIT was like you have got into heaven. No? Not only that, if you fast forward till my time also, if somebody went to IIT, it was like celebration that the boy or girl has made it in the life. Now can you imagine somebody gets into IIT, does 2 years, drops out, just walks away for no reason to his home and says, I don't want to be in IIT. Then that person takes another course, law, drops out there also. And he goes on to become the youngest chief secretary that India has seen. He goes on to turn around UTI. He goes on to bring a difference to IDBI. He goes on to become the chairperson for SEBI, in which we had so many revolutionary stuff done that the country noticed Mr. Damodaran. Mr. Damodaran, for you this time in Street MBA, we'll hear experiences, a man whom I have admired, do admire, and still learn from him. I thought it's good to share his learning with all of you. So, drop out of IIT, what came to your mind, sir? Why would you drop out of IIT? People die to get into it and you just walk away?
Thank you for having me here. Two corrections from what you said. One, it was 57 years ago, not 40. 40 would make me much younger than I am. The second is, he said he dropped out without a reason. There are two reasons. One, I was not inspired enough by the faculty to go to classes. The second is an even more interesting reason. I could not persuade myself that I should get up early enough in the morning to reach classes by 7:30. I thought that was a waste of the only childhood one had. So I decided to move on.
So, see the learning from here. Lot of times now we hear about do what you feel like, no, be happy. In those times, these concepts were not there. If you don't believe me, ask your parents. This concept of doing what you felt like and be happy, or not feeling like it doesn't inspire me, so I don't go. Here was this man who said, the teachers don't inspire me, and that's IIT. And he said, getting up so early will spoil my childhood, so I will not do my BTech, and he moves on. So then from there, how did your parents react? And then what happens in your life, and then you join the bureaucracies and IAS. Can we see this journey of yours, sir?
I've been extremely fortunate to have the right kind of parents. Because if you're a difficult person, you need good parents to neutralize the difficulties. So when I came back home, my father was posted in Madurai. At that time, he was at home. I reached by an early morning train, unannounced, of course. When you drop out of an institution, you don't tell your parents you're dropping out and coming. You just drop out, okay. So I reached there, and my mother was not at home. She'd gone to see somebody in the hospital. My father was upset because I was a topper in school. I'd done very well in my pre-university. He didn't expect me to do this. He was upset. My mother came back, discovered that there was a surprise waiting for her. So she took a good look at me. I had come by an unreserved train compartment in those days, long before you had electric trains and stuff. So I had enough coal on my dress, etc., the kind that flies around. So I learned sequencing from her. She took a good look at me. And she said, you first go and have a bath, then we will have breakfast, then we will discuss what you'll do next, which I thought was sequentially very good. And she's been a very strong influence in my life. Much later, many years later, when I was playing a chess tournament and I had an adjourned game, and I was agonizing all night on my next move because my opponent had sealed his move, unknown to me, of course. And I was looking at various possibilities. I was at that time very young myself. And I got so frustrated, it was late at night, I knocked over the pieces on the chessboard in my house. She heard the noise and came. She didn't know anything about chess. And she said, what happened? So I said, I can't find the winning move. And she asked me a very interesting question, has your opponent won? She doesn't know anything about chess. I said, no. She said, then how do you say you've lost? That lesson has stayed with me. If your opponent hasn't won, you haven't lost. The game is still on. Very supportive parents, never asked any questions.
Your opponent not lost or not won, you don't decide your victory or failure. No, lot of times we do that. Either we're super excited that we have won it even before the victory, and you have heard so many cases of people losing out, or we give up even before other has won. No, and coming from his mother, teaching him the values and principles of life, it plays out as he moves on. So then you become the youngest chief secretary.
That's right.
No,
yes.
In Tripura.
Yes.
And how was you feeling then, and what did you do, and what was the difference that you made? You know, because
it was by sheer accident. It was not something that was planned. So I reached there after a term with the central government. I have an application for study leave written out. The then chief minister was not somebody who was very fond of me from my previous tenure. So I thought he would sign my study leave application, and next day I would catch another flight and go back. It didn't work out that way because, life is a series of coincidences. The then chief secretary got suspended on that day for something else that he had done earlier. And as it turned out, I was the next senior most guy there present in station. There were senior people outside with the central government. Somebody had to take charge. So I was asked to take charge. Ordinarily, I would have been replaced after 10 days or so. They would have brought in somebody else. But 6 days after I joined, we had an agitation by the non-gazetted police officers. So I went to the cabinet and I said, I need a one-line resolution of the cabinet saying none of you will interfere, I will deal with this my way. Because it's a small state, everybody has relatives in the police force. I'm the only outsider. I said, I will deal with it. So we used some strong-arm tactics. 36 hours, we crushed the entire agitation. Life was back on track with a lot of support from the ordinary people who were not part of the police forces. And then the government, in its wisdom, not he, but the central government spoke to him and said, why don't you confirm this fellow? At that stage, a lot of objections were raised, far too young. But the then Home Minister said, no, what young? He dealt with the problem. So let's confirm, which is how I became the youngest chief secretary. A sheer accident.
he calls it accident. But it's not accident. Accident was that particular moment. But he delivered in such a short time something even the best veterans would not have dared to. How many of us would walk up to, let's say, our board or our senior management and tell them, I'll handle this, I'll deliver, please don't interfere? How many of us have had the courage? And he goes to the cabinet, the chief minister, and tells them, don't interfere, I'll deliver. Young, not right seniority, gets a temporary position of charge. 6 days into that, he tells that, demonstrates his competence, and that is where he gets confirmed. And he has the honor of being the youngest chief secretary India has seen. So we heard a lot about your UTI transformation. What was the learning experience that you had there, sir? And how do you end up there now from all the work that you've been doing with the government?
I have some very simple beliefs in life. I believe in the essential goodness of human beings. I believe unless I have a lot of evidence to prove the contrary, every guy is a good guy. So I don't have problems with people. The second is I believe, and this is a philosophy which I recommend to a lot of people, is I believe that God in His wisdom decided that mankind is His best creation. He decided that we need to be challenged more than He would challenge His other creations. So He creates problems, but then it's His business to be kind. He is our creator. So He also leaves solutions around. Our task is to find those solutions, not that solutions don't exist. I've always believed that every problem has a solution. Our job is to find it. Much like children in a birthday party look for the treasure in the treasure hunt, there will be some clues along the way. Use those clues, you go and find it. When I went in there, morale was very low. I decided these are the guys I will work with. I don't want outsiders. So we had, I won't take names, but an international consultant who had been brought in by my predecessor, who had contributed to the problem, if I may say so. So in the first 3 days, I threw them out. The man that I threw out is a friend of mine now. That is the greatness of relationships. I threw him out and said, your organization is not adding value. Interestingly, he came to ask me whether he could be of any more help now that I had come in. I told him the help you have given has taken us southwards. Now just leave. Just leave. And there are in any organization good people. The task is to find them. I had 8 or 9 people who were past 58, 60 was a retirement age. And I realized they may have been good in their time, but they were irrelevant now. So I persuaded them to leave, except one who took me to the court and lost. The rest of them left. Because I also believe in one physical principle. See, the way God has constructed us, it's easier to look forward than look back, because you look back puts a strain on your neck. We're not supposed to look back. That's our design. So I told these guys, I don't want to waste my time inquiring against you, finding out things. Here's a sheet of paper, I'll give you a pen also. You write out your resignation letter, leave. Most of them saw that I was serious. They left. One guy resisted. It was a long battle, but we took him out. So you had young people moving into responsible positions. And having, as you noticed, being entrusted with high responsibility at a relatively young age, I believed that young people would deliver. And my God, you can't ask for a better team. It was like opening up space for people who did not see where the career progression was, because these old guys were sitting above them and would have sat there for 2 years. So morale needed to be fixed first. And I had to tell them this, look, I don't understand your business, but it's not important for me to know. What is important for me is to create the enabling environment in which you perform to the best of your potential. I have no other responsibility. I am not going to learn this business, not my job. I am not going to sell units, not my job. The rest of you are paid for it. But I'll create the circumstances in which you will do a better job than was being done here. Well, things worked out. I think if you work hard, I believe in what Paulo Coelho says, if you desperately want something, the world conspires to make it happen. So it happened. So we got it round.
One of the biggest success stories has been the turn on UTI in the business that we have seen over time. No? Somebody from bureaucracy comes into a business who has no clue about it. He already has an expert consultant consulting, and he has a demoralized team. If you hear carefully what he said, first, believe in goodness of people. Second, if there's a problem, solution exists. Believe in that very strongly. Third, provide an enabling environment, bring force, and transformation happen. You all have read about this transformation. The man who did that with just this belief, hardcore in that. Then so you moved on to IDBI also in those times. Again, it was in difficult times before the merger happened. Then you made some transformation there.
It was about to post a loss in the next quarter. In the 40 years of its history, it had not posted a loss. It's about to post a loss because you had to provide for very major problem assets like Dabur, where the provision itself would have been more than 1,000 crores, which was a big number at that time. Today, we don't take 1,000 crores so seriously. We're talking in terms of lakhs of crores. Just one asset which had to be provided for, and we didn't have anything that we could do. So I created something called the Stressed Asset Stabilization Fund and took out all the problem assets and parked it in a fund in a manner that did not damage IDBI's interests. The interesting thing was that I held charge of both UTI and IDBI simultaneously, because the then minister, Mr. Jaswant Singh, said he's under so much pressure to appoint people in IDBI as chairman, and he didn't want to yield to it. So he said, do me a favor, just take additional charge of this. So I did that. I continued with that for a while, fixed the asset side, did the merger with IDBI Bank so that the cost of funds would be better. We didn't have low cost funds. Created 3 special purpose vehicles, and then I had to move out to SEBI. So I couldn't complete it, otherwise it would have been a different story, not the one that you saw in subsequent years.
But sir, even that time, that crisis was solved, no? So what Mr. Jaswant Singh wanted to do, that you delivered.
Just to give you a sense of numbers, we moved from 37% NPAs, net NPAs, 37% to 0.43 by creating the Stressed Asset Stabilization Fund.
Today we talk of 15-20 as a big problem and nobody can solve it. 37 to 0. Some percentage. Unbelievable. And then SEBI, so you completely shook up the industry and people still remember you. In fact, right from markets to the way behavior should happen to mutual funds, anything you think about, sir, that was like high transformation, sir, and high stress for you, if I may say so from the outside. How do you handle that? How do you think about all this?
I don't think it was particularly stressful compared to what I had gone through earlier. In UTI, I went to sleep every night wondering if people come and ask for money the next day, if people come and tendered the units, I didn't have the money. So what would happen? We had to manage that crisis. I didn't have anything of that kind. Yes, there were problems. Markets were not doing too well. Regulations were not the way it should be. Enforcement was very poor. People were getting away with murder. A lot of things had to be done. But again, ultimately you have products, processes and people, and you know this very well. You can copy a product. You can copy a process. You can't copy people. People is the unique thing in organizations. So I got a professor from ISB to spend a few months with us. Every week he would take a bunch of 25 people outside Mumbai, spend 1 week with them. The idea was that they should discover the strengths. Because my belief is that, yes, everyone has strengths, and I won't use the word weakness, not a part of my vocabulary, areas for improvement. We all start focusing on areas for improvement. We neglect our existing strengths. If you reinforce this, you have the ability to do that. So I told the professor, I said, just spend a week with each of these guys. I will send them to you in batches and tell them what they are capable of doing. And when they came back, believe me, they were completely changed people. I was told by people, young people, everybody, assistant manager up to executive director, everybody went. I was told by them, we didn't realize that we had all this in us. So that was my job. I don't have to do anything else in the markets. I like to think I'm a people's guy. That's it. Yeah.
People's person he is. Humble he is. All that he has done, he just says, all I ensured was enhance their belief in themselves of my people, enhance the strength, and they deliver. How many leaders have we heard who say like this? They always say that I have done that, I have done this. We know what Mr. Damodaran has done for the country. We know what all changes he has done for human institutions. Here, one other person from whom with every interaction I learn, and that's why I could not resist bringing him to you on this StreetMBA so that we can learn what he just said. No? Be a people's person, believe that every problem has a solution, try and look at problems differently, enhance the strength of people, and till you have won or lost, don't believe that the game is over. See you next time, next StreetMBA coming soon.